Hi everybody, this is Anthony Vasquez, and today I'm going to talk about open source. I'm going to begin by just talking about a little fact. It's that businesses save $60 billion a year through open source programming in comparison to closed source. But that being said, the world is becoming more integrated through technology and the internet, and more businesses are using open source programming, which allows for greater advancement in programming, increased security, and greater profits. So we're going to begin by defining open source, and then we're going to transition to the advantages and disadvantages of open source. We'll then go and describe a few examples of open source, and we'll conclude our presentation with a quick summary. So open source is the open collaboration and modification of software by anyone. As long as you have a laptop and an internet connection, you're able to alter any open source software online. What would be the advantages of doing this? Well, for one, you're going to have greater security. I mean, with more people working on the software, there's going to be a good possibility that any exploits that are in the system are going to be discovered that would otherwise have not been found had you had a closed software programming. And that's simply because with open source, you have a lot more people working on these projects together. In comparison, it's probably thousands of software designers in comparison to just maybe a small team of 10 or 20 people. So of course you're going to have greater security just because there's that much more people working on it. And the same is true for the quality of the software. When you have more people working on something, everything that wasn't going to be discovered with a small team will be discovered with a much larger team. Everything's going to be just that much more fine-tuned. And once the product is available for release, it's going to be pretty much near perfect. Another benefit of open source is that it reduces the cost for businesses. If one business is solely developing an entire software by itself, all of the time and resources of that business is going to be concentrated on that one thing. Now, if a whole bunch of other companies and businesses are working on the same software, then everybody's going to be spending time on the software, perfecting it, and it's going to be a lot faster and more efficient than if just one business worked on the software by themselves. So it's going to actually reduce the cost for the business. Now, the way that a lot of businesses make money through open source is through the troubleshooting and installation of the actual software itself. It's not through selling the software because you can't sell open source software, but it's actually through the services that are provided through it. And this is actually a huge business. It's worth billions and billions of dollars. And it's actually the way that the future is looking like. This is what's going to be the future, is the services is where the money is going to be at in comparison to actually selling the software itself. Another advantage of open source software is the publicity and business relationships that are developed through the collaboration with all the people that you meet through open sourcing. I mean, everybody, isn't perfect with their software skills. You're going to meet people that have different skills than you. You're going to develop relationships with them, and that might be beneficial for your business in the future. And of course, the last advantage is you're going to learn from others. Like I said, unless you're the best software designer in the world, there's always going to be something you can learn from somebody else. And with open sourcing, you're going to meet thousands of different people that have different ideas and different techniques from you. And it can actually be beneficial for you just because you can use those techniques and strategies that you didn't previously know and use them to your advantage for your own private practices with your business. So those are the advantages, but there are as well a few disadvantages of open source. So let's go over those really quickly. Well, for one, you're going to have less direct support. And what I mean by that is this is for the consumers of the product. You're not going to have exactly one business that's going to be able to answer all of the questions for you and help you out with any problems you have with the software. Instead, you're going to have to go to a community of people, like a forum, and actually talk about what your problem is, because so many people develop the software. There's not going to be one entity that's responsible for any problem that you would have with the software. So this is going to be something that could be a long process for the consumer trying to figure out what's wrong with their particular piece of software. And the services that would be applied to this would likely cost a lot of additional money. So it wouldn't be as beneficial in that regard. You're also going to run into malicious programmers. These are the guys who will get on their laptops and then they'll join the open source project, but they won't be doing it in good faith. They'll be on there purposely messing up the coding, purposely just making it a whole hassle for the programmers that are actually trying to make it a good piece of software. This is going to happen all the time. It's like basically a troll online that just gets their kicks out of, messing with other people. It's going to be something that's unavoidable, but it can be prevented. So this isn't something too concerning, but it will happen. So what are some examples of open source in real life? First, you have Wikipedia. I mean, everybody knows what Wikipedia is. It's one of the most used websites online. They have a software called MediaWiki that's used for Wikipedia, but also a bunch of other sites. It's really useful software, and the code is open for anyone to use. Then you have Android. Android has a lot of apps that use open source. For example, they have the Firefox web browser. That's open for pretty much anyone to use. You can go on there, alter the code, edit that. Then they also have WordPress, another open source program. And WordPress is actually, it's a lot like Microsoft Word. It's essentially almost the same thing, but it's open source and anybody can alter it to their own benefits. So in summary, open source is the open collaboration and modification of software by anyone. It's beneficial for greater security, enhanced software quality, reduced costs for businesses, profits through services, greater publicity, and the advantage of learning new ideas from others. The disadvantages of open source are less direct support and malicious programmers. So in conclusion, open source is important because of the future of programming. The open collaboration allows for a more secure and efficient software product ready to be used by consumers. And that will conclude my presentation. Thank you so much if you tuned in today to listen to my presentation, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.